What happens when you disrespect someone who sacrificed everything for freedom? A weathered veteran faced humiliation at a highway rest stop, unaware his military background would soon change everything. The confrontation that followed? Unforgettable. Marcus Reynolds, 78, was parked at Interstate 40's Sunbake rest area. His faded 1972 Ford pickup, dented, rusted, but meticulously maintained, stood out among the gleaming SUVs and family sedans. He just finished installing a custom prosthetic leg for a young Iraq war amputee 20 miles back. A state trooper's cruiser pulled alongside, lights flashing. Two officers approached, one tall with mirrored sunglasses, the other shorter with a fresh-from-the-academy stance. License and registration, the taller one demanded, circling the truck. Or maybe just some good excuses? He chuckled, running a gloved hand across the tailgate's rust spots. Marcus kept both hands visible on the steering wheel. His fingers, thick, calloused, and scarred, didn't tremble. Through 3 wars and countless classified operations, he'd learned stillness was often the best response. "Step out of the vehicle, sir," the younger officer instructed, the word, sir, dripping with sarcasm. Marcus complied silently. He stood with perfect posture despite the titanium rod in his left leg, a souvenir from an extraction gone wrong in Fallujah. His faded army cap and flannel shirt gave no indication of the man beneath. "What brings you to our fine rest area today?" "This truck doesn't look like it should be on any highway." The taller officer smirked. "Might need to call a museum instead of mechanic for this one." "ID," the senior trooper demanded, holding out his hand expectantly. Marcus handed over his driver's license and veteran's identification card, without comment. The trooper examined them with exaggerated scrutiny. "Delta Force? Really?" He looked at his partner with raised eyebrows. "We got ourselves a real-life action hero here. Funny how many Special Forces guys we find these days," the junior officer replied. "Everyone's a Navy SEAL or Delta operator now." They made Marcus empty his pockets onto the hood of their cruiser, a worn leather wallet, a small notebook filled with names, some crossed out, a folded letter, and a simple flip phone. "What's with the names?" The younger officer flipped through the notebook. "Kill list." He laughed at his own joke. "Men I serve with," Marcus answered quietly, his first word since being stopped. "Right." The officer tossed the notebook back carelessly. "And this letter? Secret mission orders?" Marcus didn't respond. The letter, signed by a former president thanking him for service that will remain classified for 50 more years, wasn't meant for their eyes. "Listen, old-timer," the senior trooper said, leaning close. "These military fantasies might work at the VFW hall, but this is a highway rest stop. Your truck's illegally parked, looks unsafe for road use, and frankly, I'm not convinced you should be driving at all." Travelers began slowing down, phones recording the confrontation. Someone whispered, "They're hassling that old man." The junior officer motioned them to move along. Marcus's mind drifted as the officers ran his information. He'd stood in worse places. The mountains of Afghanistan in winter, waiting for an extraction while bleeding. A windowless room in Iraq, negotiating with warlords while bombs fell outside. A jungle clearing in South America during an operation that officially never happened. His truck had stories these officers couldn't read. The dent in the passenger door, shrapnel from an IED that missed him by inches while transporting medical supplies. The cracked windshield, replaced after evacuating civilians during Hurricane Katrina. The officers made him sit on a concrete barrier while they conferred at their vehicle. Travelers walked past, some staring, others pretending not to notice. A teenager took a selfie with Marcus in the background, captioning it, "Grandpa's busted," before posting it online. Marcus noticed everything. The coffee shop across the parking lot, the manager watching the window, the 6 possible exit routes, the approaching storm clouds. 30 years in special operations had hardwired situational awareness into his DNA. He didn't fear these officers. He pitied their ignorance. In his pocket, his fingers traced the edge of his Distinguished Service Cross, awarded after an operation whose details would remain classified until 2055. Ray Matthews had owned the Rest Stop coffee shop for 15 years after serving with the Marines in Desert Storm. He recognized something in the old man's posture, the way he sat, perfectly still, eyes constantly scanning. Not the behavior of some confused elderly driver, but the disciplined vigilance of someone who'd operated in dangerous places. When he noticed a notebook the officers had carelessly handled, Ray caught a glimpse of a particular symbol on its cover, one only certain special operations personnel would recognize. "Janet, watch the counter," Ray told his assistant before slipping into the back office. He picked up his phone and dialed a number few civilians possessed. "Colonel Westbrook's office," answered a crisp voice. "This is Ray Matthews, sir. Marine Corps, retired. I need to report a situation at Interstate 40 Rest Area 72. There's a man being detained. I believe he's one of yours. Older gentleman, Delta Force from the looks of it." Description, the voice sharpened. 70-something, weathered face, distinctive scar across right jawline. Officers are treating him like some delusional old man. They've had him sitting in the heat for almost 40 minutes now. A pause. "Name?" "ID," said Reynolds. "Sir, Marcus Reynolds." The line went silent for 3 seconds. "Stay there. 30 minutes. Ray returned to the window. The officers were now writing citations, laughing between themselves as Marcus sat stoically in the heat. 3 citations, the senior trooper announced, returning to Marcus. Improper parking, unsafe vehicle. And we're still checking if this falls under impersonating military personnel. Marcus looked up for the first time, his steel-gray eyes meeting the officers. Not with anger or fear, but with the same measured gaze that had once stared down interrogators in Baghdad. Impersonating? Marcus asked, his voice quiet but clear. "Come on, old-timer. Delta Force? Special Operations? At your age?" The trooper shook his head. "These stolen valor cases are getting out of hand. Real disrespect to actual veterans." A middle-aged woman approached from a parked RV. "Officers, this is ridiculous. You can't leave an elderly man sitting in this heat. Ma'am, please return to your vehicle. This is official business." "He's a veteran. Have some respect," she insisted. "Ma'am, we deal with veterans every day who can't prove their service. Please step back." Marcus watched her walk away, frustrated. He'd seen this before, civilians trying to help, being dismissed. It didn't bother him. What bothered him was the disrespect to the uniform these officers wore. Their badges meant something, represented something just as his own service had. The sun beat down as they continued processing his information. His artificial knee ached in the heat, but he gave no indication of discomfort. He'd once hidden in a drainage pipe for 18 hours in the Iraqi desert. This was nothing. Trucks being impounded. The junior officer announced triumphantly, "Unregistered historical vehicle claims need to be verified, and we can't do that here." Marcus still didn't speak. Some battles weren't worth fighting. Not yet. At precisely the 1-hour mark, the distinctive sound of military-grade tires on asphalt-turned heads. A black Suburban with government plates rolled into the rest area, stopping with precision 20 feet from the scene. The driver, a man in his 30s with military haircut and bearing, exited first, scanning the area with practiced efficiency. Then the rear door opened. Colonel James Westbrook didn't wear his uniform. He didn't need to. Everything about him, from his ramrod-straight posture to his calculating gaze, screamed military authority. At 52, he commanded the most elite special operations unit in the United States Armed Forces, though most Americans would never know his name or face. "Officers," he called out, his voice carrying across the parking lot, without seeming to raise it. "A word, please." The troopers exchanged glances, instinctively straightening their postures. "Sir," the senior officer approached, suddenly professional. "This is a routine traffic stop. Can we help you?" Colonel Westbrook ignored the question. He walked directly to Marcus, who remained seated. "Sergeant Major Reynolds," Westbrook said, his voice softening with unmistakable respect. "Permission to assist you, sir?" Marcus looked up, the ghost of a smile crossing his weathered face. "Permission granted, Colonel." Westbrook extended his hand, helping the older man to his feet. They exchanged no salutes. They were both in civilian clothes, But the junior officer didn't miss the significance of a colonel addressing an enlisted man as sir. Westbrook turned to the officers, his expression hardening. Which one of you suggested this man was impersonating military personnel? The rest area had gone quiet. Travelers sensed something significant unfolding. Phones recorded everything. Sir, we were simply following protocol for. Westbrook cut him off with a raised hand. You just detained a legend, and I'm about to tell you why that was a mistake. Sergeant Major Marcus Reynolds, Colonel Westbrook began, his voice carrying to the now substantial crowd gathering at a respectful distance, joined the Army in 1963. By 1972, he was selected for Delta Force during its earliest formations. The officers shifted uncomfortably as Westbrook continued. He served as a senior tactical advisor during the Iranian hostage extraction planning. He personally trained 3 generations of our nation's most elite operators. The extraction techniques he developed are still taught today. Marcus stood impassively, his eyes fixed on the horizon. In 1991, Sergeant Major Reynolds led a 4-man team into Iraq ahead of the main invasion. Their intelligence saved an estimated 3,000 American lives. The mission remains classified. The senior trooper cleared his throat. Sir, we had no way of knowing. In 2004, Westbrook continued as if uninterrupted. At age 61, when most men are planning retirement, Sergeant Major Reynolds voluntarily returned to active duty after September 11th. He trained special operations units in advanced survival techniques that have saved hundreds of lives in Afghanistan and Iraq. A man stepped forward from the crowd. He's the man who made my son's prosthetic leg after the IED took it in Fallujah. Wouldn't take a dime for it. A woman added, he drives veterans to medical appointments every Tuesday at the VA. Some of them wait for his day because he's the only one who understands what they've been through. Ray from the coffee shop joined in. He stops here every month on his way to the veterans' home. Always brings handcrafted items for the residents. Special canes for the amputees. Colonel Westbrook nodded. Sergeant Major Reynolds has received 3 Purple Hearts, the Distinguished Service Cross, and numerous commendations that remain classified. He's been invited to the White House by 4 different presidents. He turned to the officers. That truck you were about to impound? It transported wounded soldiers during Hurricane Katrina. It's carried the caskets of fallen soldiers who had no family to claim them. That vehicle is practically a war memorial. The troopers stood in stunned silence as the true measure of the man they detained became clear. Sir, the junior officer stepped forward, removing his sunglasses. I want to apologize. We had no idea who you were. Marcus spoke then, his voice quiet but carrying clearly across the now silent rest area. That's precisely the point, son. You never know who someone is just by looking at them. He gestured to the crowd. That woman over there might be a surgeon who saved a dozen lives yesterday. That man might be a teacher who's inspired hundreds of children. That teenager might be tomorrow's great leader. The senior trooper looked genuinely chagrined. Sir, we were just doing our job as we understood it. Marcus nodded. I understand protocol. I wrote protocols that men still follow in combat zones. But protocols without judgment are dangerous. In battle, that gets people killed. In civilian life, it destroys trust. Colonel Westbrook handed the officers a folder. This contains Sergeant Major Reynolds' service verification and his vehicle's historical designation paperwork, which exempts it from certain regulations. It's all been properly filed with your department annually. The senior officer accepted it with a nod. We'll update our records immediately, sir. Marcus looked at his truck, battered, old, but reliable. Like him, young man. He addressed the junior officer. Let me tell you something I learned in Delta. The quietest operators were usually the most lethal. Remember that before judging someone's worth by their volume or appearance. The officer nodded, a new respect in his eyes. Yes, sir. I will. Good, Marcus said. Then nothing more needs to be said about today. The video spread across social media within hours. Legendary Delta Force veteran Humiliated. Then his commander shows up, garnered millions of views overnight. Veterans groups share it with comments about respect and assumptions. Military channels highlighted Marcus's disclosed service record, with former special operators hinting that the public revelations barely scratched the surface of his contributions. The state police commissioner issued a formal apology and announced a new training program focused on veteran recognition and respect. The two officers weren't disciplined, at Marcus's specific request, but instead became the first to complete the new training. National news picked up the story. The heroes among us, why we must look beyond appearances. Politicians from both parties cited the incident in calls for better veteran support systems. Marcus declined all interview requests. When a major network left their card at his workshop, they found it returned with a handwritten note. The story isn't about me. It's about everyone we failed to see. A fundraising campaign launched without his knowledge raised $318,000 in 5 days. After initially refusing it, Marcus relented when organizers suggested creating the Reynolds Initiative for Combat Trauma Recovery, providing custom prosthetics and mobility devices for wounded veterans. The young trooper, Officer Brian Miller, sent a handwritten letter to Marcus's workshop. "You taught me more in 10 minutes than 4 years on the force. I requested assignment to veteran outreach." Marcus pinned the note to his workshop wall beside photographs of men whose names appeared in his notebook. Brothers from battles long ago, many now gone. 6 months later, the same rest area installed a small bronze plaque. On this spot, we were reminded that heroes rarely announce themselves. Marcus's workshop expanded with volunteers, veterans learning prosthetic crafting alongside civilians eager to help. Officer Miller spent his off-duty hours there, learning to shape carbon fiber into legs that would carry wounded warriors forward. Colonel Westbrook visited occasionally, never in uniform, sitting quietly in the corner of the workshop, while Marcus taught former soldiers to use their hands to heal rather than harm. They rarely spoke of the past. Their shared history contained too many classified chapters, but their silent communication spoke volumes. The senior trooper, now a training officer, began each new class with the video footage from that day, followed by a simple question. "Who did you miss seeing today?" Marcus's truck continued rattling down highways, still carrying supplies, still occasionally serving as a hearse for veterans with no family. But now, when state troopers spotted it, they would often pull alongside, roll down their windows, and simply nod, a warrior's acknowledgement. 1 year after the incident, Marcus parked at the same rest area. Ray brought him coffee without being asked. "You changed things," Ray said, nodding toward a group of troopers chatting respectfully with an elderly veteran at another table. Marcus shook his head. They changed themselves. All they needed was someone to remind them why they put on the uniform in the first place. The old truck started with a familiar rumble. There were still veterans waiting for his help, still battles worth fighting, just different ones now. Respect isn't earned by volume, but by quiet consistency. The heroes among us rarely wear signs. They carry their greatest achievements in silence. Who have you overlooked today? The cashier might be raising 3 kids alone. The janitor might have saved lives in combat. The quiet colleague might be fighting invisible battles. Comment respect if you believe in honoring the unsung heroes still walking among us.